Welcome to a very special episode of the Nitpicking Nerds. It's the top 100 black cards in all of Commander. Big projects like this are only possible because of our awesome Patreon supporters. A few bucks can really go a long way. Plus, you'll get access to exclusive videos. If you're looking to support yourself and the channel, shop through Cool Stuff Inc. and use code NERDS at checkout to save 5%. Or go to Dragon Shield for the best sleeves in the multiverse. Good sleeves. Look out for the Moxfield ad, but as always, you could never hope to guess where it is. Finally, I need to tell you about one of the most fun events of the year, Commander Sealed. From September 15th to the 17th, you can battle it out with a sealed Commander deck while supporting the Trevor Project and Trans Lifeline. It's something I look forward to every year, so grab your tickets from our link in the description and I'll see you in Rochester. Oh, and happy birthday to everyone's birthdays today. How did I determine the best black cards in EDH, you might ask? By looking at the following. Card type, mana value, playability, castability, impact on the game, strength in the decks the card belongs in, advantage gained when cast, and combo potential. Lastly, I won't be taking budget or CDH metagames into account. Let's get to it. Number 100. Necron Deathmark. This comes to us fresh out of the Warhammer 40k Commander decks of last year, and reads very similarly to Ravenous Chupacabra, who may show up later on this list. It's a simple design, but it's a great card to slot in for synergy when your deck cares about its artifact or creature count and can recur this to destroy multiple creatures over the game. Plus, having Flash gives you some extra versatility. Number 99. Revel in Riches. Ixalan in 2017 was home to this spicy alternate win condition, which makes the most broken token of all time, Treasure. In decks full of Treasure, it's a great win con. Your opponents either kill it or you win the game the very next turn. You'll really be reveling in riches when you follow this up with a board wipe. Number 98, Stinkweed Imp. I'll tell you right now, this is the only dredge card on our list from Ravnica, City of Guilds in 2005. Almost all of Stinky Inky's power comes from Dredge 5, so discard this or mill it over to start getting tons of cards into your graveyard. And when you have to play it, the Death Touch body can be annoying for opponents. Ultimately, it's a really good, if somewhat niche card. Number 97, Putrid Imp. 2 smelly imps in a row? What are the odds? This one debuted in Torment in 2002. It's practically the cheapest discard outlet in the format, letting you dump your hand into your graveyard at will. That's really its only function. If we ever get a cheap free discard outlet that gives us actual benefit, I could see this being replaced. Number 96, Disciple of Bolas. Released alongside M13 in 2012, Disciple can be a large burst of card draw with some nice life gain stapled on. Plus, it being a creature means it slots perfectly into graveyard and heavy creature deck, and it's hard to blow out with removal since it doesn't target. It can be played in decks looking to go large, like Skullbriar, or decks that just make a bunch of dudes where it can cash in a random 3/3. Number 95, Sepulchral Primordial. Here's our first reanimation target, something Mono Black is well known for. It came from Gatecrash in 2013. Primordial is great on a budget, and it represents 4 creatures for 7 mana. It's a solid top end, but it's outclassed by a lot of other monsters that you'll see coming up. Funnily enough, it can combo if your opponents give you a Karmic Guide and you have a sack outlet. Number 94, Bastion of Remembrance. This is one of our more recent Aristocrat entries released as part of Ikoria Lair of Behemoths in 2020. It's slightly overcosted for the classic Death Drain effect, but you are getting an enchantment that is much more resilient to removal, and coming with a creature means you don't lose a ton of synergy when trying to clog the board. That line of text really helps this card. Number 93, Dark Ritual. Let's take a trip all the way back to Alpha in 93 for the original Ritual. Generally, you shouldn't use this card unless you're trying to combo, or if you can reliably cheat out card advantage, especially from your commander. It's always a 2-for-1 against you, so not every deck wants this card. Ranking it so low might be controversial, but we still think it's a powerful card. Number 92, Kalitas, Trader of Get. In 2016, Oath of the Gatewatch brought us Kalitas, a strong hate bear type card that hoses death triggers for opponents while giving you board presence. Kalitas can sacrifice his zombies and gain you a chunk of life. He also provides very relevant board wipe insurance, often leaving you with 20 or more power afterwards. Though graveyard hate creatures are not in short supply, Kalitas is one of your better choices. Number 91, Desolation. And here we have the introduction to the fun side of black cards, the stacks pieces. This one is an oldie from Visions in 1996. It basically says you can't tap lands to cast spells or they start blowing up. It's super good early game, but falls off pretty hard in the late game, but it's really powerful and asymmetrical for decks that can cast spells off of mana rocks. Number 90, Grim Tutor. You can expect to see a fair share of tutors on this countdown, and Grim Tutor from Starter 1999 is kicking them off. One card being able to represent your best play at any given moment is innately strong, but tutors also become exponentially more powerful the cheaper they get, which is why Diabolic Tutor is nowhere near making this list. Grim Tutor at 3 mana ends up being about the most we'd pay for a generic tutor in high power decks, but it's still worth playing on occasion. It used to be $200, but now you can pick one up for about $17. Number 89, Liliana of the Veil. One of the most iconic Magic cards of all time. Former Modern staple and now Pioneer playable, Lily of the Veil has been everywhere since her debut in Innistrad in 2011. In Commander, you play Lily to repeatedly jam the +1. She's better than she looks. She can do some serious work in Madness decks or group slug decks looking to empty everyone's hands. She's also good in Liliana Tribal. Number 88, Sangromancer. She came to us from Mirrodin Besiege in 2011 and is a very nice source of life gain for certain decks. As long as combos are off the table, players will want to answer it before wiping the board or else you'll be way up on life. It's an absolute wombo combo with Fire Covenant or Phyrexian Purge, basically letting you get a 3 or 4 mana Plague Wind. Sangromancer's a great way to bolster your life total in discard or spot removal heavy decks, but life gain can only get you so far in these top 100 lists. Number 87, Sign in Blood. Magic 2010 and 2009 is where Sign in Blood hails from, and it's a nice burst of card draw exactly when you need it. Life is a resource you have plenty of in Commanders, so we're fine paying part of it to get ahead. We prefer effects like Sign in Blood over Phyrexian Phyrexian Arena, which you won't find on this list. Aside from being efficiently costed and netting you cards exactly when you need them, it does say target player, so you could burn someone out or maybe score a political deal. Number 86, Night's Whisper. Oh look, it's a slightly better version of Sign of Blood from 5th Dawn in 2004. Sure, you can't target other players, but Night's Whisper more than makes up for that by only requiring a single black pip. Everything else is the same. Being able to spend 2 mana to go up a card immediately is good, turns out. Number 85, Yahenni, Undying Partisan. This efficient sacrifice outlet comes from Aether Revolt, released in 2017. It's hard to remove as long as there are other creatures around it, and it has a bad habit of sticking around after board wipes as a 20/20. It's the first sack outlet on our list, and it won't be the last. Number 84, Awaken the Erstwhile. This is a bulk rare from Ravnica Allegiance in 2019 that is actually pretty brutal, particularly in the early stages of the game. Emptying all players' hands benefits a deck with the best graveyard synergies, and the zombies tend not to do very much since everyone will have 4 to 7 of them. A deck like Marin or Carador can easily turn this card into a victory at a high percentage of the time, but it doesn't see much play because it just isn't very fun. Number 83, Pawn of Ulamog. This card is surprisingly good for an uncommon, originating in Rise of the Eldrazi, released in 2010. It gives your creatures a second life, but they all get reincarnated as Eldrazi spawns. Pawn of Ulamog is great for aristocrat strategies and is best friends with the sack outlet, letting you generate mana to continue casting spells while basically doubling your death triggers. And it can even enhance combos like the classic Phyrexian Altar plus Gravecaller loop to get you infinite mana. Number 82, Dark Confidant, aka Bob. A strong 2-drop creature that debuted in the Ravnica City of Guild set in 2005, and a popular card in Commander decks due to its ability to generate card advantage. However, it comes with the risk of losing life, which can be problematic in decks that rely on high-cost spells or have a high average mana value. It performs best in high-powered decks that prioritize low-cost spells or decks that care about it being a creature, but it's not an auto-include, and it's more of a niche option for those seeking to maximize their card advantage. Number 81, Shieldred, the Apocalypse. Shieldred is a Praetor who is not messing around, from Dominaria United of 2022. She's like 10 times better than the original Shieldred, who you will not be seeing on this list, and is a rock-solid card for mid-range type decks looking to grind out advantage over a long game, with things like the Monarchy, or go the full aggro route and slot her into decks with wheels to annihilate people. Number 80, Sidisi, Undead Vizier. It's time for another tutor, this time from Dragons of Tarkir in 2015. Sidisi is pretty pricey for a tutor at 5 mana, but it comes in the form of a creature with an ETB, so it can be reused and isn't too hard to cast, unlike Runescar Demon. It can sacrifice itself in the worst case scenario when it's just a solid little role player in graveyard or heavy creature deck. It can also be pretty scary in the command zone. Number 79, Victimize. Victimize comes to us from Urza's Saga, printed in 1998, 1 year after I was born. It's a pretty efficient reanimation spell that can put you far ahead. As strong as it is, this rarely sees play in Nitpicking Nerds decks because there's just so many powerful reanimation spells out there. In fact, there's 10 coming up on this list. There are better options, but this is still amazing for budget decks and will always perform well if you have expendable creatures. Number 78, Malika Rebirth. The first MDFC on our list. It comes from Zendikar Rising, of course, which came out in 2020. This type of spell is extremely narrow, but being a land on the other side for you to play most of the time means this will never rot in your hand, and it works wonders to protect Lightning Rod commanders or to re-trigger ETB effects. This should absolutely be your first choice over Undying Malice and Feign Death, which we really don't play. Number 77, Phyrexian Reclamation. In 1999, Urza's Legacy debuted, and boy was that set powerful. Phyrexian Reclamation is one of many commander gems to emerge from that set, and it's one of the best ways to repeatedly recur creatures from your yard. If this doesn't get answered, I'm really not sure how a grindy graveyard deck can lose. This could even go infinite if you have mana generating creatures. Having some life gain in your deck to offset constantly paying 2 life is probably a good idea though. Number 76, Stitcher's Supplier. Let's move over to Core Set 2019, released in 2018, for this next entry. Stitcher's Supplier has been a staple of graveyard decks since it came out, and offers an extremely efficient way to self-mill for just 1 mana. Milling 6 for 1 mana, assuming you can sacrifice this, is virtually unmatched by any other black card. Just make sure to only slot this in your creature-heavy decks. Number 75, Doom Whisperer. Coming from Guilds of Ravnica in 2018, Doom Whisperer has been a bit of an overperformer, discovered by us when I randomly threw it into my fun Carador deck because I like surveilling. It can turbo mill you into a fast victory if you have mass reanimation, and actually has a beefy body for attacking and blocking. It even serves as a decent reanimation target and is sure to dump tons of creatures, flashback spells, and dredge cards into your graveyard to set up an easy dub. Number 74, Exquisite Blood. This card from Avacyn Restored in 2012 stands as a very unique cog in the life gain archetype, surfing as one of the only kind of cards with this effect. It goes infinite with the multitude of cards with the opposite wording that say whenever you gain life, someone loses life, like Sanguine Bond, Veto, and Dina. It does have a minor downside of stopping your opponents from attacking each other, but let's be real, you're just gonna combo them out anyway, so it's fine. Number 73, Ritual of the Machine. This is an oldie but a goodie, dating all the way back to Alliances in 1996. It's underplayed and relatively unknown, but this is one of the better mind control effects out there, since it's not an aura that can be removed. And I can confidently say that it's your best mind control option in black, since the next best option is like Enslave. Number 72, Lethal Vapors. Debuting in Scourge during 2003, Lethal Vapors has proven to be one of the not-so-fun black enchantments. It's painfully annoying to have all your creatures invalidated, and skipping a turn is not something players are clamoring to do either. You can lock certain strategies out of the game, and with counter magic backup, this could be an easy victory for you against creature decks. Number 71, Dance of the Dead. This classic from 1995's Ice Age has 16 lines of Oracle text on Scryfall, but don't worry, it's basically just a 2-mana unrestricted reanimation spell, which is pretty strong. Usually it won't matter that the creature doesn't untap if you're after ETBs and death triggers, but don't expect this to be super potent in combat metas. The icing on the cake here is the combos this offers with Abdel Adrian, Leonin Relic Warder, and World Orchard Dragon, which loop by exiling this. Number 70, Hoarding Broodlord. It's a brand new threat from a brand new set. Hoarding Broodlord just came out like 11 seconds ago in March of the Machine, and it's essentially Runescar Demon with Convoke that also gives the spell you find Convoke. That's 2 huge upgrades over Runescar, who obviously isn't on this list. This monstrous tutor creature is obviously very powerful, but we're keeping it a little lower on the list until we have more information on just how well it plays out. Number 69, nice. Erebos, God of the Dead. 2013 brought us Theros, and with it the God Cycle, including Erebos, which might be the most annoying one. It's the best grade variant in the format, and is stupid hard to remove, not only because of indestructibility, but because it's not even a creature half the time. And being able to stop life gain from opponents is always more relevant than it seems like it'll be. Number 68, Cryptghast. He's here from 2013's Gatecrash, and he wants to double your mana. This primarily goes into mono black decks despite the confusing extort reminder text, and it's one of the reasons people say black is a quote-unquote big mana color. It beats out a lot of the other mediocre doublers like Narcana Revenant, Cage Sun, and Extra Planar Lens by being pretty cheap and for giving you an outlet to spend all that extra mana, draining opponents and gaining 3 life a pop. Number 67, Necromancy. Necromancy is another hyper-efficient reanimation spell from Visions in 1996 that can even work at instant speed. And what's better, sacrificing the creature might even be beneficial if you're trying to win via Protean Hulk. It has the same combos as Dance of the Dead, but I don't think I'd play this too often unless I was aiming to fire off some sweet infinite combos. Number 66, Plaguecrafter. Fleshbag Marauder variants play pretty well in multiplayer formats, and from Guilds of Ravnica in 2018 we have Plaguecrafter, the best version we have in EDH. Unlike its other playable counterparts, Plaguecrafter can snipe planeswalkers and forces opponents to discard if they don't have any creatures. Total Aristocrat's powerhouse. Number 65, Body Launderer. This is one of the most recent entries on the list, coming from New Capenna in 2022. Body Launderer is going to connive a lot in your decks full of expendable creatures, which gives you card selection and fills up your graveyard. It can loop with creatures like Karmic Guide and has some of the best hair in the business. Number 64, Oppression. Time for another fun card. Oppression from 1998's Urza's Saga forces everyone to discard a card whenever they cast a spell. That's like all the time. It depletes everyone's hands very quickly and has good synergy with discard and graveyard strategies, since you gain more advantage by having an empty hand than anyone else. It might not be in many decks, but that's only because this card is completely miserable. Number 63, Curtain's Call. Did you know that Commander 2016 released in 2016? Well, it did, and it brought Curtain's Call with it. 6 mana looks unreasonable, but Undaunted means this is actually a 3 mana spell that straight up kills 2 creatures, which is a really nice 2-for-1. Currently about $1 and is a fantastic option for any budget black deck. Please stop playing Murder. This is literally 2 murders, and it's still easier to cast. Number 62, the Meathook Massacre. We initially underestimated this powerhouse enchantment from Innistrad Midnight Hunt in 2021, but it's a really great option for certain decks. Usually our rule of thumb is that we recommend playing Meathook Massacre in any deck that would be okay casting it for just black. It offers a lot of life gain and can serve as a backup win condition. The only thing it doesn't do reliably is wipe the board, but it will still take out some smaller creatures. Number 61, Rise of the Dark Realms. Released in 2013, Magic 2014 brought us a humongous late-game haymaker in Rise of the Dark Realms. It gives you every creature from essentially the entire game so far, all at once, which is usually enough to close things out just from ETB triggers. It's great in the late game, but actual trash in your opening hand, in the early game, and if graveyard hate has been flowing. Play 35 to 40 creatures and hope the game goes long, because if it does, you have this card as a free win. Number 60, Ravenous Chupacabra. Chups is still a bread and butter staple of all these creature and sacrifice decks I keep mentioning over and over. It's from Rivals of Ixalan in 2018, and while it may be overcosted for a sorcery speed removal spell, it makes up for that weakness by being a creature. Now, it's recurable, repeatable, and synergizes with your entire deck, so I'm more than happy playing this over like Infernal Grasp. Number 59, Junji, the Midnight Sky. Junji comes from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, released in 2022, and is the reincarnated version of Kakusho, who you may or may not see later on this list. It's good for chunking in damage since nobody wants to kill it, and both death triggers are pretty good. The discard mode provides you with a 6-for-1, so that's nice. The other mode works great for all your reanimator decks, and Junji loves being paired with sack outlets, much like basically every other creature on this list. Number 58, Kakusho the Evening Star. Oh look, it's Kakusho. This is the older incarnation from Champions of Kamigawa in 2004. There's only one death trigger here, but it gains you 15 life and nugs everyone else for 5. So this can and will close out games if you can re-trigger it. It's kinda clunky as a 6 mana play and you can't always kill it, but in combat metas, 30-point life swings are pretty cool. Number 57, Buried Alive. This is a triple tutor from Weatherlight in 97 that finds 3 creatures to put right where Black wants them, the graveyard. Now you can assemble combos, set up reanimation, or even get some value by throwing things like Bloodghast, Gravecrawler, and Nether Trader in the bin. When someone plays a Buried Alive and passes, you'd better unite the table against them because you might just die next turn. Number 56, Street Wraith. Cycling for 0 mana? That sounds like a weird ability you find in Future Sight from 2007. Street Wraith is honestly one of the hardest black cards to rank because it isn't really a card. It really doesn't impact the board, but it puts a creature in your yard, lets you discard, draws a card, and then thins your deck for free. Cards that let you play a deck that's virtually 1 card smaller are great for consistency. Number 55, Stinging Study. Got a pricey commander? Well, you probably want Stinging Study from Commander 2021, released in 2021. It's a huge boost of card draw at instant speed and can totally get you right back into a game. You really want this with commanders that cost 5 or more, but once you meet that simple qualification, this will just be awesome for you. Pairs even better with life gain to offset the chunk of life it costs to cast this. Number 54, Gravecrawler. Dark Ascension from 2012 brought us possibly the scariest zombie of all time, and it's this little guy. He's so terrifying because he's really hard to kill and enables a ton of infinite combos with various pieces like Rooftop Storm and Phyrexian Altar. It fits perfectly in zombie decks looking to exploit small creatures or hyper-efficient combo decks capable of getting just a few zombies out to satisfy his graveyard casting requirement. You'll see him alongside his friends Carrion Feeder, Undead Augur, Plague Belcher, Wilhelt, and Noxious Ghoul all the time. Number 53, Bloodghast. Time for yet another 2-1 that constantly returns to the battlefield from the graveyard, but this one is from Zendikar back in 2009. Like a ton of cards before it and after it on this list, Bloodghast is amazing in graveyard and aristocrat decks, and works super well with fetch lands. Hopefully you never have to actually cast this and can just Skull Clamp and Birthing Pot it away for value until the end of time. Number 52, Turgid, God of Fright. One of the biggest boogeymen in the format from Kaldheim in 2021, Turgid is widely hated when she shows up in the command zone and has largely been rule zeroed out of many playgroups as a commander. Basically, if you don't answer Turgid and her controller on taps, you're gonna get slammed with mass sacrifice or discard and lose the game outright. Even the largely ignored backside can work as an infinite mana outlet if you need one. Number 51, Villas, Broker of Blood. Villas comes to us from Core Set 2020, which dropped in 2019. Once this gets going, it's an obnoxious card draw engine and only gets more brutal if you can gain some of the life back. Its main weakness is its high mana value, making it one of the premier reanimation targets in the entire format. In fact, with Reanimate, you just get to draw 8 cards right away. Funnily enough, resolving a Villas won't even get you attacked much. If players can't kill you, they're not going to chunk you for 5 if that means you're going to draw 5 cards. Number 50, Mind Slicer. 2001's Odyssey is where this bully calls home. Mind Slicer is here for one thing and one thing only: to die and make everyone discard their hands. You, as its controller, are going to have access to your graveyard with Carador and Marin shenanigans, so while everyone else is sent back to the Stone Age, you keep playing as if nothing happened. It's as backbreaking as it is unfun. Number 49, Tainted Aether. Time for another Urza Saga stacks piece from 1998. This one stops players from developing their board, keeping the number of creatures and lands owned by each player constant until this leaves. If your deck doesn't really play creatures, this is perfect for you, since you can just ignore it while everyone else struggles to make any plays at all. Number 48, Lethal Scheme. I've been high on this card ever since it debuted in New Capenna Commander in 2022, because oh boy does Lethal Scheme play amazingly every single time. It can cost as little as 0 mana, and the more you convoke with it, the more loots it gives you, sculpting your hand while filling your graveyard and even buffing the creatures that convoked it. Play this card every chance you get, and if you have a Madness or Discard themed deck, this will literally be one of your best cards. Number 47, Incarnation Technique. Here's the second card from Commander 2021 in 2021, one that has really overperformed for me. Incarnation Technique is the only reanimation spell you can cast with an empty graveyard, and that's the worst case. Usually, you give the copy to the player who can take advantage of it the least, and then you get a huge selection of cards to find 2 amazing reanimation targets. This card plays around targeted graveyard heat as well, since there's nowhere to respond when each individual copy is resolving. It's not a CDH card or anything, but this is one of the best fair reanimation spells in the format. Number 46, Shriekmaw. One of Magic's classic 1/8/7 creatures from 2007's Lorwyn. It's terror on a body, but it can be cast for 2 different costs, depending on if you want the body around or not. It's obviously less efficient than like a Turbinate, but you're the creature deck. You can't do anything with a Turbinate after it's cast, but this can be sacrificed, reanimated, and flickered all the way to the bank. Shriekmaw has been a commander staple for 15 years now, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Number 45, Sir Conrad the Grim. 2019's Throne of Eldraine introduced the Super Aristocrat. There's cards that ping for creatures dying, but Sir Conrad pings your opponents basically whenever anything happens. You do have to pay a premium mana cost for this advanced effect though. However, there's some cool stuff you can do with things like Mind Crank or Whip of Erebos, and Conrad can make for an explosive and powerful win condition. Number 44, Hagra Mauling. Time for my second Zendikar Rising MDFC from 2020, Hagra Mauling. This is 4 mana Murder, which seems weird to get excited about since Murder is trash. But we have a land on the other side. This card is literally never dead in your hand. It can help mitigate mana flood and mana screw. If a 3 or 4 mana kill spell isn't offering you versatility, you're getting scammed. Number 43, Soul Shatter. Released right alongside Hagra Mauling in the same set in the same year, Soul Shatter has proven to be one of the more efficient instant speed kill spells in the format. If you want to put Murder to shame yet again, here we have a card that's easier to cast and doesn't target, that kills each opponent's most relevant creature 90% of the time. It's a 3-for-1. Number 42, Damnation. I'm sure you were expecting this one somewhere. Damnation comes from Planar Chaos in 2007 and is just Wrath of God in black, but it turns out that's huge for its playability. Wrath of God is like the 10th best board wipe in white, but Damnation is like the 2nd or 3rd best board wipe in black. You see it all the time and it's just a great rate for the color. Number 41, Contamination. Urza Saga again. Here's another wildly unfun stacks piece, one that shuts off all mana production on lands that isn't black. Everything is basically just swamps now, and not in the fun Urborg way. This could literally be the least fun card on this list, but it dominates games single-handedly. Just deploy Dorks to stack to the upkeep cost and you can have this around for as long as you want. Get in here, Gravecrawler, feed this and watch your opponents cry. Number 40, Nether Trader. Time Spiral really gave us the king of disposable dummies back in 2006. For 1 black mana a pop, it'll double your death triggers or sacrificing, and it can contribute to some combos involving Pitiless Plunderer or Phyrexian Altar too. It's great value to discard or mill over, and graveyard decks will have no trouble continuously sending Nether Trader back to the yard for some value. Number 39, Dictate of Erebos. We journeyed to Nyx in 2014 and came back with an excellent enchantment for decks with expendable creatures. Honestly, if Dictate of Erebos isn't answered, you really can't lose the game to creature decks. It's like a Plague Wind enchantment. Why would anyone play creatures when you have a Viscera Seer and some random tokens in play? Plus, having Flash means you can respond to removal or partial board wipes to wreck everyone else. Number 38, Grave Pact. There's not much different to say about Grave Pact except that it came from Stronghold in 1998. Honestly, if you ask me which one of these two is better, my answer might change from day to day, but I think being a mana cheaper gives Grave Pact a little nudge, since you don't always care about flashing these things in. They're both really brutal effects that can border on unfun if they aren't removed. Number 37, Waste Not. This is our first and only card for Magic 2015, which came out in 2014. It was designed by the Magic community itself as part of an event called You Make the Card 4. If you're curious, the previous 3 winners were Forgotten Ancient, Crucible of Worlds, and Vanish into Memory. It's a pretty niche card that really only goes into decks looking to wheel or force opponents to discard, but if that's you, this is probably the best card in your entire deck. It creates these never-ending turns and kind of functions as a 2-mana Omniscience in some games. Number 36, Grim Haruspex. One of the first cards we've seen like this, Grim Haruspex, is from Khans of Tarkir in 2014. Now, you won't believe this, but it wants you to play Sacrifice Outlets and expendable non-token creatures. Pair the two together and you can draw extra cards whenever you want. It's rock-solid board wipe protection and can easily score you anywhere from 2 to 10 cards depending on the board state. I've only ever seen this card cast as a morph one time, and that was just Joe trolling everyone. Number 35, Midnight Reaper. Well, you can't have Grim Haruspex without Midnight Reaper, which came from Guilds of Ravnica in 2018. It's a very similar card, but it draws when it dies, and it costs you 1 life each time. With life total starting at 40, I rank this above Grim Haruspex since it can't really die without getting you value. Number 34, Grim Hireling. Forgotten Realms from Commander 2021 had some decent cards in it, but perhaps none better than Grim Hireling. This thing gives you 2 treasures for each player you hit, and on the off chance you can't make use of tons of treasure, just sack them to kill creatures. It's perfect for decks with lots of evasive dudes, and most of the time you'll make your mana back the turn you cast it, effectively making this cost 0. There's really nothing more you could ask from this card. Number 33, Chains of Mephistopheles. Let's take a trip back to Legends in 1994 for one of the most confusing Magic cards ever printed. You'll need this flowchart to even figure out what's going on, but put simply, no extra draws allowed. It's really good at what it does, but odds are you won't see one at casual tables since it's a $1,300 card. Number 32, Zulaport Cutthroat. Battle for Zendikar in 2015 had a nice aristocrat payoff for us. Zulaport Cutthroat dings each opponent for 1 whenever our dudes die, and spots us 1 life too. It's one of the best 2-mana payoffs for having your creatures die, and over the course of the game you'll find it slowly burning players out until you finish them in a blaze of glory, or until you go infinite. Number 31, Blood Artist. Hey, this looks familiar. Blood Artist is similar to Zulaport Cutthroat, but it's a bit older, from Avacyn Restored in 2012. Blood Artist triggers off of any creature dying, but it only trains a single opponent. So you get less damage, but notably, Blood Artist will also stop opponents from assembling combos involving infinite death triggers. It will also gain you more life after a board wipe, so typically, Blood Artist is the #1 go-to aristocrat payoff in the format. Number 30, Grey Merchant of Asphodel. Theros was quite the set, but the standout card for Commander since 2013 has been Grey Merchant, a common. It drains each opponent, and then you gain life equal to all of the life they lost, which is a ton as long as you have at least a semi-decent devotion to black. It's a common tutor target, reanimation target, and ends games like it's nobody's business. It can win games single-handedly and is so good that I'm generally uninterested in playing it. Number 29, Ophiomancer. Commander 2013 from 2013 gave us a uniquely powerful token generator. Every turn you get a snake if you don't have one. So if you can sacrifice them for value, you can just keep going indefinitely. And because they're death touch blockers that will reappear, opponents really aren't too jazzed to attack into you. Ophiomancer does all this without asking any more mana from you. Number 28, Torment of Hailfire. Nicol Bolas doesn't mess around, so in 2017 when he brought about the Hour of Devastation, he showed us how to really end a commander game with Torment of Hailfire. If you're a controlling or big mana deck, you just need to make it into the late game, and then you can fire this bad boy off for like 15 and annihilate everyone else with just this one card. It's so good and reliable that it can be a little anticlimactic. Don't forget to break out your Cabal coffers for this one. Number 27, Nether Void. Let's get back to those miserable cards, shall we? From Legends in 1994, we have Nether Void, which is a mana leak for every spell. It's a soul-crushing tax to pay over and over, and even the spell opponents use to kill Nether Void is going to set them way back on mana. You can also continue to resolve cards that can't be countered unimpeded. Just land your threats first, slam this $800 stacks piece, and cruise on over to victory. Number 26, Opposition Agent. This tutor-busting hate bear debuted in Commander Legends in 2020 and was one of the most hyped cards in the set. For casual games, it didn't quite live up to the hype, but the stronger the decks at the table get, the better Oppo Agent will perform. It not only stops tutors, the most powerful thing you can do in Commander, but it steals them for you to use for yourself. It's a giant tempo swing. Don't forget that while you search your opponent's libraries, you can look at their hands too. Let's move on to Moxville.com. Yeah, that's right, you forgot it was coming, but now you get to hear about the best deck building website ever. Customize your sorting methods, check your deck's stats, add custom tags for easy organization, and share decks with others while giving them editing privileges. This is your friendly reminder that there's literally nothing Moxfield cannot do. Alright, but now it's time to move into the top 25 black cards. Number 25, Carrion Feeder. Coming from Scourge in 2003 is a pretty basic looking card, but as it turns out, free stack outlets are really important for enabling all the amazing synergies of like every other card on this list, and they're definitely few and far between. Carrion Feeder can grow in size and helps add to your zombie count, and 1 mana is the cheapest you can possibly pay for a free stack outlet. Number 24, Viscera Seer. Speaking of free stack outlets, there's the other 1 mana creature version from Magic 2011 in 2010. Viscera Seer offers a much better effect for sacrificing creatures. You get to scry 1. So chaining sacrifices can dig you deeper into your deck and help you find win conditions on top of just being extremely useful and mana efficient. Number 23, Razaketh the Foul-Blooded. Hour of Devastation from 2017 gave us Razaketh. I mean, look at this card. Does a better reanimation target exist? He just turns all your creatures into tutors. At the highest power level, that means you can grab fast mana and assemble your combos, and even in lower power games, I just don't know how you're possibly losing with 5 demonic tutors. Just, I don't know, grab Grey Merchant and keep reanimating it or something. It's really hard not to win if you can activate Razaketh more than once. Number 22, Imperial Seal. This low? Huh? In 1999, I was 2, and Portal 3 Kingdoms had just been released. Turns out it contained one of the best tutors ever in Imperial Seal. 1 mana to find any card, except it goes on top of your deck. The one thing holding this back is being its sorcery speed, but if you can draw a card right away, you're in business. Tutors get exponentially better the cheaper they are, hence why Grim Tutor is sitting all the way back at number 88, and Imperial Seal is number 22, despite putting the card on top of your deck. It was pushing $800 before its reprint in Double Masters 2022. Number 21, Snuff Out. Free spells are amazing in Commander, letting you hold up interaction without anyone else even knowing about it. Mercadian Masks in 99 introduced us to Snuff Out, which kills any non-black creature for the measly cost of 4 life. If your deck will have a swamp in every game, I strongly urge you to play this card, even if the non-black clause has you worried. Trust me, it's worth it. Life is a resource, as we all know, and you'll have 4 to spare when you start at 40. Just make sure you're using the vastly superior Liliana artwork. Number 20, Dread Return. Time for another reanimation spell, and this one slaps. From Time Spiral in 2006, Dread Return is an overcosted reanimation spell that is also a free reanimation spell afterwards. Obviously, the flashback side is the broken half, so feel free to mill or discard this. Paying 0 mana to get your best threat back to the battlefield is just unmatched. There's a lot of win conditions involving milling your entire deck and using this to bring back a key piece to start a chain and win the game. Number 19, Pitiless Plunderer. This unassuming uncommon was actually one of the best commander cards from Rivals of Ixalan in 2018. It's an amazing payoff for creature deaths and lets you stack up mana in the worst case scenario. The best case scenario with the Sec Outlet is Pitiless Plunderer doing a Phyrexian Altar impression and potentially generating infinite mana for you. But sheesh, can you imagine how pricey this card would be if it was printed at rare? Number 18, Living Death. One of the strongest non-CDH black cards there is. Living Death comes from Tempest in 97, and oh my god, it is tough to lose if you resolve this card. It is symmetrical, so your opponents get things back as well, but when you're a turbo graveyard deck constantly filling the yard, the amount of advantage you gain from Living Death will be insurmountable. It also doubles as a board wipe, and while not ideal, it does rid the board of everything currently on it, even if they are replaced with other creatures. Number 17, Doomsday. Weatherlight from 97 came with a very infamous win condition with a badass name. It's an all-in combo card. If Doomsday resolves, you better win real soon, or else you'll be decked or just straight up attacked to death. Usually Doomsday leads to a combo kill via Thassa's Oracle, where you draw into your last 5 cards and then get things moving with Gush or something similar. This is a 3 mana card that sets you up to win immediately if you just draw a card. That level of power is really hard to come by. Also, for you CDH fans out there, feel free to lump in Tainted Pact and Demonic Consultation into this number 17 spot, since those are 2 other ways to deck yourself with just 1 card. Number 16, Liliana Dreadhorde General. Lily is quite possibly the best Planeswalker in the format from War of the Spark in 2019. It's got a fantastic static ability, letting you draw cards as your things die. The -4 is a 6-for-1 almost every time that leaves her in play, and you get even more value if you end up sacrificing things. Also, she has one of the best ultimates on any Planeswalker. We usually don't care about that, but Lily actually just wins you the game on the spot, which is a nice bonus to have. That foil Japanese version is still over $1,000, so we'll stick with the normal printing. Number 15, Entomb. Tutors are good. Here's one from Odyssey in 2001. Entomb obviously wants you to care about the graveyard, so quite often you're going to put something into the bin so that you can bring it out with a reanimation spell. And with such gigantic monsters like Protean Hulk, Razaketh, and Villas in the format, Entomb will fast track you to a victory like nothing else, and it's even an instant. We don't want some cards in our hand, it's better to send those chonkers to the grave. You can even get mid-rangey non-creature cards into the yard like Life from the Loam to set up your early game. Or maybe you already have a fatty in the graveyard, so grab Dread Return to reanimate it right now! Entomb is really unmatched in the tutor category. Entomb is an extremely unique tutor. Number 14, Diabolic Intent. Time for another tutor. Diabolic Intent comes from Planeshift in 2001 and is really efficient, as long as you have a creature to sacrifice. For some decks, getting to sacrifice a creature can be an upside, but generally, most black decks are thrilled to have access to the best card in their deck at any moment for 2 extra mana. Cheap tutors are good, but you knew that. Number 13, Machias the Unhallowed. Want to loop your creatures forever? Look no further than in Dark Ascension of 2012, and specifically Machias. He has so many abilities that you'll forget at least one every single time you play him. Obviously, the main ability is giving all your non-humans Undying, making Machias a combo piece with tons of cards, especially Triskelion, his most famous partner. Machias is so strong that you'll have trouble taking less than a 5-minute turn if you have any board state at all, because he opens up so many avenues for value or instant victories. Number 12, Ad Nauseam. If you can lower your deck's mana value enough, this is literally one of the best things you could be doing in Commander. Ad Nauseam from Shards of Alara in 2008 lets you utilize your life total and your deck's super low average mana value to essentially draw a third of your library for 5 mana at instant speed. It's a heavy build around, but most CDH decks are happy to include this anyways. It's probably one of the least explored cards in casual Magic, but it's no secret that this card is busted when you start at 40 life and have combos in your deck. Number 11, Yawgmoth, Thran Physician. This is the second highest ranked creature from this list, and he comes from Modern Horizons, released in 2019. Yawgmoth is a complete and utter auto-include in any deck that'll have excess creatures. I even played in decks that are light on creatures where the commander can pump out a few tokens, and it's still amazing. Once it's on board, it's one of the best sack outlets in Black, and paying 1 life is almost nothing in EDH. On top of all this, while you're drawing tons of cards, you're removing problematic threats from opponents. Plus, there's even a gravy value mode of proliferating if you have, like, let's say, a Liliana Dreadhorde General you want to ultimate. Yawgmoth does it all. Number 10, Animate Dead. Let's get back to reanimation spells, and it doesn't get any older than Alpha of 93, which gave us Animate Dead. Just ignore that headache of a text box. This is 2 mana to bring back a creature from any graveyard, and since it's an enchantment, you can combo with Leonin Relic Warder, Renegade Rallier, and Abdel Adrian. Just throw a Blood Artist into the mix and you have a powerful reanimation spell that can also close out games. Number 9, Agadeem's Awakening. If you know this channel at all, you should have expected the Mythic MDFC from Zendikar Rising in 2020. It goes in every single 1 or 2 color black deck, period, with an opportunity cost that might as well be 0. Cut a swamp for this thing. Plus, the spell sign is one of the strongest we've seen on MDFCs and doesn't really have an exact counterpart. You can get a lot of value and even win the game from tapping out to bring back all your relevant creatures. Or just hit your land drops. Number 8, Deadly Rollick. Do you like spending mana? Probably not, so here's a free removal spell from Commander 2020. If you control your commander, which tends to happen pretty frequently in Commander, this is better than Swords to Plowshares, which is pretty insane to think about. And you do still have a bailout scenario of an overcosted spell, so it's not uncastable. 0 mana interaction is just so brutal for opponents, since you won't be representing anything and can get serious blowouts. Number 7, Reanimate. Remember Animate Dead from 2 minutes ago? Here's an even cheaper way to bring creatures back from the dead, originating in Tempest of 97. It can't combo, but the mana advantage you're getting from Reanimate is literally unmatched. There's a reason they call these spells reanimation effects. Number 6, Dauthi Voidwalker. Strangely, this is the only card from Modern Horizons 2 released in 2021 on this list. I guess the black cards from that set were pretty medium, except this one. It is quite possibly the best hate bear in the format, shutting down graveyard synergies while giving you access to a free spell to cast later from among the cards it hated out. It's 100% playable from casual to competitive and can dominate the game while absolutely locking out graveyard decks. Number 5, Bolas's Citadel. We saw our top black creature, and now it's time for our top artifact. Bolas's Citadel from War of the Spark in 2019 will win you the game by itself if left unchecked. It cheats mana and rips through your deck to deploy other threats quickly. Now, should your opponents destroy those threats or the Citadel? Probably the Citadel, but sometimes they won't have a choice. It even offers a combo in the form of Sensei's Divining Top, which already essentially gives you an emblem that says pay 1 life to draw a card, and Aetherflux Reservoir, which will gain you thousands of life and deal thousands of damage. Bolas's Citadel pays itself back immediately, is a must-answer threat, can deal 10 damage to opponents over and over, and will spark a 5-minute value turn almost guaranteed. Number 4, Toxic Deluge. If you want to talk board wipes, 3 mana is just about the cheapest they come at. Commander 2013 gave us a real banger in Toxic Deluge, since its effectiveness scales with the life you pay, not the mana you pay, like with most other board wipes. It just might be the number 1 wipe in the format. It even kills indestructible creatures. Like we've said before, starting at 40 makes this card trivial to use effectively, which is why Toxic Deluge has a home in 15% of all black decks from the past 2 years. Number 3, Necropotence. This unbelievably busted enchantment debuted in Ice Age in 95, and was famously underrated initially, when in fact it is one of the best black cards of all time, even in Commander. We start at 40. Drop this, pay 15 life, and find your best cards immediately so that you can untap and win the game next turn. The worst part is, as soon as this resolves, they can't stop you from getting the cards, so opponents will still have to kill Necropotence, but you already got your value. If this card had been banned from the inception of the Commander format, nobody would have batted an eye. Number 2, Vampiric Tutor. When a single card can represent the best card in your deck for any scenario, as long as it's easy to cast, that card is generally very good. Vampiric Tutor is 1 mana and an instant, printed first in Visions during 96. Sure, it puts you down a card, but the surprise value of firing this off end of turn often outweighs that, along with the fact that you're about to play your best possible draw. Tutors are the best, and now that I'm saying this, I bet you know what our number 1 black card is going to be. Number 1, Demonic Tutor. Here we go. Straight from Alpha in 93 comes the best tutor, period. Sure, it's a little more expensive than Vamp Tutor, but you get the card into your hand right away, so there's no waiting for your best card. If you are building for power, this belongs in literally every single black deck. There's not much else to say about it, but picturing Demonic Tutor as every other card on this list, but only when you need them most, does a pretty good job of showcasing this card's format-dominating power. That does it for our top 100 black cards in Commander. If you want more spicy countdown action, click on our video for the top 100 blue cards in Commander. And remember, if your opponent plays Swamp Expedition Map on turn 1, they're gonna get Cabal Coffers.